want to just dwell on this idea of why language matters. So no language is just a tool of communication alone, right? It's a language. A language is also inclusive of our personal and community histories and memories. It's food, it's music and art and architecture. It's our ancestors, our stories. There's so much that is conveyed via this idea of the language that we have. So what is it that language does? First and foremost, it names things. It gives a name to things, it gives a name to feelings, and so on. For example, Kagada. Oops. I just Meju or Hottige, Neeru, Banna, and Prajaprabhutva, or Bandwala-shahi, or Sarvadhikara, Anuvada, Shrishti, Samaja, Dhirate, Prashne, Honegarike, so on. There's so much that it names. This is what language gives us. So when we name something, we are also giving it a value. We are giving it a certain meaning, and we are giving it a certain power over what place it has in our conversations or in what we write. And that is what makes language such a sharp weapon in all our hands, right? Some people use it for good, and a lot of people use it for not very good things. For example, take the word hate. Now we all have our likes and dislikes. It's basic human nature. We like something, we don't like something, we like someone, we don't like someone. We might dislike some of our classmates or colleagues, or maybe our neighbors, for various reasons. These are all personal feelings that we have associated with other individuals, and they might not always be fair, but they're still very valid. These are we are entitled to our private feelings as long as they don't cause public disruptions. But hate, it is such a strong word. The emotion conveyed is so negative and so strong. I sometimes think of it as it is like an oxygen. It is like oxygen that some people, especially those in positions of power, use when they tell us constantly that we have to hate something, or we have to hate someone, or we have to hate something that someone says or wears or eats, or etc. But left to ourselves, I think that we as society, we are strong, we are tolerant, because these are things so ingrained in Indian society, that we are society strong like iron. And moreover, just left to ourselves, who has the time to sit and perform these ideas of hatred? Nobody has time. We're all busy with our own things. So I call hate probably the most dangerous word, because if someone is using it like oxygen on a society that is otherwise like iron, what is it that you get? Over time, this oxygen is what reacts with iron, and that's what leads to rusting. It's basic chemistry in some ways. So we see all this rust and we see all this rot everywhere in all our towns and cities and villages all over, all around us. So this is what I mean when I say language and how we choose it matters. So hate is, again, it's such a strong word, but thankfully, I think that love remains a stronger, more powerful word, and that's one of the things that I suppose we have to be grateful for. I'm going to stay on language for just a little while longer. Please bear with me. One of my favorite things about Karnataka is how multilingual we are. It might be true of many states or even some countries outside of India, but I'm going to restrict my thoughts to our state, because that's the region I'm most familiar with, and I know it better than the other examples I might be able to give. I think it's a fair assessment to say that we all know or we all have a working knowledge of at least 3 to 4 languages. Is that fair? Most of us would know, if not more than 3 or 4 languages, we would know at least those many languages. All of us would have learnt English in schools, whether we went to English medium schools or learnt it as one of the subjects in schools. And then there is the language that you speak with your family. Given that we are in Dakshin Kannada, Tulu is just as prevalent, if not more widely spoken than Kannada is. And because of the policy that we have in the state here, a lot of us would have learned Hindi in school. And if not, maybe you learned Hindi while watching films or listening to music, or even being forced to speak a little bit of it, given how the imposition of this language has taken over. And because there is a geographical proximity to northern Kerala, many of you might also understand or even speak Malayalam. And now take this example to any other part of Karnataka, and you will find that there is again a basic awareness of these many languages. If you go up to northern parts of Karnataka, there is Telugu, Marathi, Dakhini, many different languages. So in Madikeri, which is where I was born and raised, and I continue to live there now, I have counted, I think, exactly 12 different languages which are spoken by people there. Apart from 20 or 22 tribal languages, which I don't understand a word of. And further, if we are just going back to Kannada itself, think of the many different versions of Kannada there are. I don't want to call them dialects because they are just dialect somehow places these versions of language below the prestige dialect of what we speak. In fact, even in the 9th century work, Kaviraja Margam, Sri Vijaya talks about Kannadangal, the presence of different Kannadas in the state. It's easy to see because the way Kannada is spoken here in Dakshin Kannada is it's very different from what is spoken in Bangalore and Mysore, and immensely different from the Kannada that's spoken in, say, Kalyana Karnataka, the districts in Kalyana Karnataka. So I think this multilingualism that we have is one of the greatest strengths that we have as people of Karnataka, or even as Indians. And it is not till I started traveling outside India that I realized that this is very unusual. This is not, for us, it's so normalized in our lives that I think a lot of us take it for granted how many languages we know and speak and interact with on a daily basis. But in countries like, let's say, the United Kingdom, this idea that someone might speak more than 2 languages is something that they simply can't wrap their heads around. And for us, probably the opposite is true. If someone told me as an Indian they speak only 1 language, I would be a little surprised how that is the case. I understand I'm generalizing, but I suppose this is true for most of the people in this country. And in many countries, because of colonialism, of course, regional languages have historically been suppressed, sometimes to the point of extinction as well. In fact, the very idea of monolingualism, that one language should be above and beyond every other language, is a very colonial idea. So whether it is English a few generations ago or some other language today, the idea of imposing a language on a large population of people, it's an imperialistic ambition of another modern kind, and we must always resist it. What is heartening is that in many of these former colonies, in India included, the younger generation have been reviving some of these languages. Being prouder of speaking in their languages than probably even we used to be when we were much younger. And just to give one example here, I'm oversimplifying the language moment, but in New Zealand, which I had the great pleasure of visiting last month, Terio Maori, which is the Maori language, has been seamlessly integrated into English in public events, in everyday speech. In fact, the name of the country itself starts with the Maori name first, and that's the official name, Aotearoa, New Zealand. So, given that there are so many students here, I urge you all to please acknowledge and remember this multilinguality in our lives. It doesn't matter if you're studying humanities or the sciences or business or whatever subject. Given that we all use language every single day, one or the other language, this applies to all of us. Linguists talk about how the more languages we have in our lives, the more ways we have of seeing the world and experiencing the world. And that's beautiful, right? Because how someone might describe one thing in Kannada is very different from how they would explain it in English or Tulu, or this is translating again. I'll come to that. So when you cannot find a word in one language that you're speaking, you immediately reach for another language. You reach for the second language or the third language or the fourth language that you know, and this is how you can seamlessly cross the artificial boundaries of geography and politics. So I hope you all remember that this idea of Kannada or whatever your mother tongue is as cool as English. It is great to be able to talk and work in English. There's no denying that. But that doesn't mean your language is not cool enough to be spoken in public or to be used in your everyday lives. So, of course, one needs English in this world, and it's silly to say that English is a foreign language and hence must be removed from this country. That makes no sense. Excuse me. So the way, if you just listen to ourselves speak in English, the way we use English, it's very Indianized already in all the years. For example, I'm sure we all use it here. You do one thing, or it seems. And these are literal translations from Ont kelsa madi. You do one thing, or ante, which is my favorite word in Kannada. So we use this all the time. Our hog bandrante or bartarante. We use that so much. And when someone I use it. I use it seems a lot. I say you do one thing, and these are so Indian, and it's just so it's sometimes seen as not proper English. Firstly, I don't understand what proper English is because there are so many Englishes in the world. But these are representative of our sentiments, and this is English being Indianized and in some ways decolonized as an Indian language as well. And there are hundreds of such examples. Indian, what we know as Indian English is just as nuanced as Irish English or Caribbean English. But it's sad that while Irish and American and Caribbean English is celebrated for their uniqueness, somehow it does not apply to Indian English. It's just seen as not cool enough. And this is the argument I have with all my editors when I'm working for some publication. Plain racism, if you ask me. But nothing should stop you from living in multiple languages. So just stop about languages. In the last 1 year, everywhere that I have spoken anywhere in the world, I keep getting asked about AI. And again, I bring this up because there are so many students in the room. I'm very sure someone in the audience will ask me an AI question later, so I'm preempting this. I'll put it very bluntly. I hate AI. There is no sugarcoating it. And I'm very aware that what I said earlier about hate being a strong word and how we have to use it with caution. I wish there was a stronger word when it came to my sentiments about AI. And here, please note that if AI is making is helping medical sciences make great advancements in science, and it is being used to save whales. I'm all for it. Please use AI. Please use a lot of it. But when I say I absolutely loathe AI, what I mean is AI in art. I don't want to see AI make a painting or do a drawing. I don't want AI to write the books that I want to read. I don't want AI to make music. It's not just harmful for the environment because of how much water and energy it requires, but let's face it, AI art is just bad. I'm yet to see something made by AI which looks good or which is nice to read, or just yeah, art is just bad. It's as simple as that. And I'm sure again a lot of you would be familiar with this trend last year of Ghiblifying photos. Do you know what the students know what I'm talking about? Okay. So I want to tell you about the story of Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli was started in 1985 in Japan by Hayao, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, Hayao Miyazaki, along with some other directors and artists. So the studio is famous for its hand-drawn animation films. Please pay attention to the word, hand-drawn, which means that every single frame that you see in a Ghibli film is drawn multiple times by hand, by a human, and individually colored to make it an animation. And where there's very minimal computer usage. And most of these films are on Netflix. So if you have Netflix subscriptions, please go watch some of these films, and they're extraordinary pieces of work. So can you imagine the thousands and thousands of hours of work which goes into making each of these frames and each of these scenes and films? And Miyazaki is now 80-something years old. He's always rejected the clinical use of technology in favor of using human talent. And very famously, while talking about AI and CGI, computer-generated graphics, he said it was an insult to life itself. And I completely agree. The Ghiblified photo that you might have used as your WhatsApp or social media profile picture for a few days until the trend went out of fashion. It might have taken you a few seconds or a few minutes to create. But what a slap on the face of a man who spent decades perfecting the signature Ghibli aesthetic. And not just him, what an insult using AI is to all of us writers and artists and musicians and painters. When you use AI for time pass, just because it is there and it is free and you want to create a reel or a new profile picture or whatever, what you're doing is you're rejecting the humanity that is there at the core of every single piece of artwork. You're just letting AI feed on itself. And you're dismissing the hard work, the sweat, the tears. There are a lot of tears when you create art, trust me. The efforts and the learning and the struggles and the thinking processes of fellow human beings. If that is not enough to convince you to please not use AI for art making. And when I say art, I don't mean just painting or drawing. I also mean writing, translating, whatever, all the creative arts. AI is literally killing our planet. It is literally killing our brains. It's stopping us from thinking. And this human body that, the bodies that we inhabit, It's been evolving for hundreds and thousands of years. And to think that we want to give up control over it, give up control over our brains, which is such an extraordinary organ, which I'm sure medical science is still finding out new things about our brains. So when we use these tools, which only make billionaires richer and the earth poorer, what we are really doing is giving up control over our thoughts to a water guzzling machine. So these machines and their algorithms are controlling how we think, how we interact, what language we use, what we eat, what we wear, how we live. Every single aspect of our everyday lives is being used to try and control us to become these sort of like machines who all, we all end up thinking alike, we all end up looking alike or wearing the same things and eating the same things. Having said that about AI and technology, I'm the first one to admit that it's pointless to say we can give up the internet. That's not how the modern world works. I use it for all my work. It's not. The internet is a very wonderful thing. If you know, it can be very powerful also. How it can, if used properly, you can use it to mobilize, to voice dissent, to ask questions. I'm sure you must have all heard about the protests, the Gen Z protests in New Delhi, 4 days ago now. But when we all use the internet every day, all day, what we can, sort of reserve to ourselves and retain is some measure of control in the way we use the internet. Think, that's where I got thinking as dissent. So many of us have stopped thinking for ourselves. We're just very happy to be told something and that becomes our thoughts. Think every time you get a WhatsApp forward or see a video or a piece of news, think if it can be, if it might be true or if it might be AI generated. Think before you mindlessly forward something to one of the 20 groups that we all might be part of. And there are tools on the internet to check if something is some viral piece of news or some photo is fake or if it's real or if it's AI generated. Please use it. And there are news anchors who scream at the top of their voices instead of talking like regular human beings. They're competing with Netflix and Amazon and all the other entertainment channels for your attention. And the more you let people like them decide what you should think and feel about whatever may be the situation, the more control you're giving up over your own sense of individuality, your own ideas, your own culture. And our attention, that is the most valuable thing we have right now. And billionaires who run all these social media platforms understand that. I say this sadly not just for students, because I think all students are far more smarter than sometimes what we give them credit for, but also people of the older generation, because we can't simply sit back blaming Gen Z for being on their phones all the time. There are many people in the older generation, in their 60s and 70s and 80s and so on, who are just as addicted to their phones, who are just as addicted to using AI, who are really good at using AI also, in fact. Let's just all, remember that when we withhold our attention from screens, we are allowing ourselves to think. When we ask questions, we are exercising our right and our duty to dissent. And there is nothing more important to the health of